The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May Child Nutrition webinar. And my name is Colleen Fillmore. I am the Idaho State Department of Education Child Nutrition Director. Along with me today is the entire Child Nutrition State Agency team. And please begin submitting questions, and we will address those at the end of the webinar. So before we do dive into the webinar, this is just a quick reminder on a couple of things. The first one is that there is a new pot of money from USDA called the Emergency Operational Costs for CNP. It's important to note that we do not have that money at this point. We are going through a processing and approval with an application and a budget with USDA. It was not even due to USDA until May 10th. Even though Idaho has gotten all the information to USDA, we believe they will not approve those plans and budgets until after the due date in May 10th. So it will be some time before we get that rolling, and most likely the money will be coming out around July during the next state year. So when we have more information on that, we will let you know. But right now, we have done really everything that we can, and we are waiting to hear back from USDA. The second thing that we want to remind everyone on is the Idaho School PEBT team. The state agency is working hard to get that program up and running. Done a wonderful job. Great people in our office, of course. And we're happy to let you know that the Idaho House and Senate has passed the bill H372, which is for that PEBT project. We are waiting for the governor to sign the bill, which we expect him to do. It is important to note, though, that we still do not have approval on the USDA budget for PEBT. The plan is approved. You can see it on the website. The budget from USDA for our PEBT program is not approved yet. So we're really in a holding pattern on that, but the state agency is ready to roll once we get that budget approved. And just for a placeholder on the next CNP webinars, we're looking at June 3rd and July 1st. We know that we're getting into the summer months, and so we'll kind of see if there's any updated information we can share with you. If there isn't, we may or may not be having those, but just look for the broadcast email and we'll let you know if we are actually going to be having those webinars. So again, start putting your questions in as you think of them, and I'm going to hand it off to Jessica right now.
Thank you, Colleen. Good morning, everyone. I know our sponsors were really busy trying to get this USDA survey done for us to make sure that we could report accurate data over to USDA. And so we thought it would be neat for you guys to actually see some of the survey results and get a glimpse of how you compare to some of the other sponsors. Keep in mind, as I go through this information, that the survey results are reflective of data from March 2020 through September of this year. So first, we're going to look at meal delivery, strictly looking at SSO and SFSP. Pretty interesting. Looks like the majority of folks either did walk-up sites or curbside pickup, drive-through service. About half of sponsors did bus or van delivery, and less than a quarter of sponsors did delivery at individual homes. Looking at meal options, again, lots of similarities between SSO and SFSP. Folks were serving a full week's worth of meals at a time, shelf-stable meals, 2 to 3 days of meals at one time. We were pretty surprised at the amount of folks that were serving frozen meals, and then quite a few folks were taking advantage of their USDA foods and trying to serve those with bulk food packages. And looking at meal counting, paper rosters were the #1 method that folks used. Quite a few sponsors then also continued to use their main point of service system. Clickers was next, and then very few sponsors used mobile technology. We know that the operation definitely caused a lot of financial issues for our districts this year. And so the biggest concern that you reported was meal packaging costs. Additionally, a close second would be those increased food costs. About half of you reported it was a burden, trying to purchase as much protective equipment as possible for your staff. Nearly half of you reported a decrease in participation and reimbursement, and then meal delivery costs. So again, looking from March to September, we asked you if any of your programs had a financial impact, and it looks like the biggest impact was obviously to school breakfast and the National School Lunch Program. And next would be SSO and SFSP, and then your CACFP programs. We really appreciate all the time that you took into taking the surveys. We know that you guys are incredibly busy, especially with the summer operation coming up. And this survey was sent out with only a week's notice. And we really thank you for working so hard at getting this done for us so that we could report the data back to USDA. Idaho did successfully submit a report. We had to answer over 1,000 questions. So we cannot thank you enough for your help in finishing off this survey. And with that, I'm going to send it off to Dominique and Heather.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. And good morning, everyone. For this next set of slides, Heather Bloom and myself will be going over some of the summer operations as you begin planning for summer, and we'll tag team back and forth on the differences between SFSP and SSO. But the first step I want to share with you is deciding, once you decide what you would like to do for the upcoming summer operations, there are opt-in forms that we are asking you to complete to let us know what your choices are for moving forward with the summer operations. If you are a sponsor that operated the summer food service program during school year 2021, and you plan on operating either the SFSP or the SSO during the summer, or even if you do not plan on operating during the summer, we need to know what your plans are, and that can be completed by filling out the Summer 2021 SFSP SSO waiver extension form. On that form, you can let us know if you are not operating or what your plans are for summer. And if you are a previous sponsor of the summer food program or an SFA that is currently operating the seamless summer option during the 2021 school year, and you would like to operate the summer food service program this summer, then we have another option for you. It's the 2021 SFSP waiver opt-in form, because if you have not been previously operating the summer food program, you haven't opted into the necessary forms to operate for the upcoming summer. So we just want to make sure that you know which waiver form to complete depending on which program you are operating currently and where you plan on operating in the summer. And with that, I will hand it over to Heather Bloom to go over some of the waiver options that you have moving forward for the summer programs.
Thank you, Dominique. So the summer operations waivers are essentially an extension of those that were provided by USDA this last school year. So if you were operating under the seamless summer option and you would like to continue doing that into the summer, essentially the first form that Dominique referenced is how you would notify our office that you would like to operate and you would like to utilize USDA waivers to do so. And that is the same for those who operated the summer food service program as well. So if you want to extend into the summer what you have already done, you may do that and notify our office on that initial waiver opt-in form. The one caveat is that the ability to operate a summer school site as a closed enrolled site went away with the end of the school year. So that flexibility was provided by UNA, that USDA allowed for school operations to be close enrolled to serve the children enrolled in their program, and that is not allowed during summer operations. So if you would like to operate a summer site, you will need to operate as an open site where you are serving and making available food to children in the community. That doesn't mean you can't serve your summer school population It just means you need to look broader than simply those students who are enrolled in a summer school program. And so these waiver flexibilities, I'm hoping, are somewhat familiar. You can continue to ask for meal pattern flexibilities as issues arise. Those are taken on a case-by-case basis, and the state agency will approve those as they come in. The non-congregate allows children to take meals off-site. Parent pickup, as long as you have an integrity measure in place to ensure that the meals are only going to children and that they're not being duplicated, that's an option. Area eligibility allows for sites that don't qualify on the basis of area eligibility, which means the population is 50% or more free and reduced. That's an option for this summer. We would caution, if that's something you're taking advantage of, just be aware that that is not promised in the future. And should you establish a site under area eligibility, that doesn't mean that it's going to be eligible for the next 5 years. So meal service times allows for bulk meal delivery, batching the meals together. You don't have to be bound to the meal service times for breakfast or lunch. Using offer versus serve in summer food service program is an option. Area eligibility for closed sites. While it's extended, please keep in mind that closed sites are actually not permitted beyond the school year. This would be an allowance for somebody that is pushing out that last day of school rather than saying school is done and now we're moving into summer school. And then the SFSP first week site visit is also a waiver option that continues from this last school year. So that's the process for the waivers this year. If you're operating the seamless summer, then the meal pattern flexibility will allow you to go all the way through to September 30th. The meal pattern flexibility under the summer food service program, that meal pattern flexibility ends June 30th. And so keep that in mind. These waivers that I just discussed, they were extended through September 30th. However, they are simply for summer operations. They do not apply to school year 21-22 operations. So last day of the school year for this year is a hard line in the sand. Move into summer operations. When your summer operations is done, another hard line, and you move into school year operations. And there is a different set of waiver flexibilities to address school year 21-22 waivers. So those that I just spoke of for people operating summer only. And Dominique, I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thank you, Heather. So now that you've had a brief overview of some of the options to operate in the summer, I would like to spend the next slide going over training requirements. This has been a very confusing year, but for summer food service program operators, there are annual training requirements that must be completed every year before beginning program operations. So this training that we're discussing now are the trainings that must be completed before you start, whether your summer program starts in June or later, that these trainings must be completed before you start your normal summer program operations. So the first slide, these are the two trainings that must be completed prior to beginning your operations. And the first slide here is a list of the online trainings that we provide these through the CNP training portal. They have been updated for 2021 summer food service program. And these slides here, the general explanation of the program, monitoring requirements, offer versus serve if you are utilizing that meal service model during the summer programs, that is required, SFSP training requirements, and food safety. These must be completed by all sponsors operating the summer food program this coming year. Again, offer versus service only required if you are utilizing that model. Now the next slide is, normally this is where we would be conducting our in-person training and traveling around the state. These trainings have been moved to an online format again this year. And these are the two sets of trainings that are also required to be completed by all sponsors prior to beginning operations. But depending on the sponsor, it will depend on which training you are required to complete. For sponsors that are new with new directors or leadership or had administrative or operational problems in the previous year, you will be required to take the SFSP 101 training. And for returning sponsors that had no major turnovers or significant administrative or operational problems, in the previous year, there's a refresher online training for you sponsors, and you will be notified, all sponsors will be notified by the state agency of the training course that your organization is required to complete prior to beginning summer operations. And off to program packet renewals. Summer food service packets were due April 30th, 2021, and that is in the past. That was last week. However, there is still time to submit your packets to the state agency. We have a federal deadline of June 15th when all packets must be approved or sponsors cannot operate. So we have an early due date for packets because we do know there are, especially this year, there are a lot of changes that may need to happen to sites or operation times depending on decisions that districts make as they move into the summer operations. However, a couple updates. If you are a current summer operator and you are continuing your program operations into the summer program, you can update the sites that you are planning to operate by extending meal service end dates into the summer months that your sites will be operating if they are open sites. So you can go ahead and update those sites now. However, if there are sites that are currently operating as closed enrolled sites, they cannot be updated until you have submitted your final claim for the school year, because we need to switch over that site operation from closed to open. So we're asking those sponsors to wait until you submit your final school year claim before you update those sites that are currently operating as closed and transitioning into open summer sites for the summer programs. And with that, those are the updates for summer food, and I will turn it back over to Heather to provide updates on requirements for seamless summer.
Thank you, Dominique. So Seamless Summer is a fairly new program in Idaho, and many of you were operating it during the school year, but it is a standard summer program that Idaho historically has not participated in, and there are set rules and regulations requiring summer operators to abide by those rules. And since this is the first summer, we're really looking at a larger number of operators under the Seamless Summer. We want to be sure to equip you and make sure that you're prepared to operate. So what we're looking at here is a step-by-step process of how you would either elect to operate and then update your site applications in order to be approved to operate the Seamless Summer as a summer program. And it gets a little tricky since we have school year, summer school year, and all of those are viable timeframes. But essentially, if you haven't, the first step is to fill out that summer 2021 SFSP SSO waiver extension form. Since we are currently in the same site application that we have been all year, and edits will be made in that packet, we need notification as the state agency that you are planning to operate or not, so that we can make sure to monitor this MyldahoCNP site applications appropriately. So everybody, no matter if you're operating or not, please fill out that first form. An indication that no, I will not be operating this summer is allowable on the form, and that's something that we want documentation of, just to be sure that we're not missing anyone or folks aren't falling through the cracks. Note, if you operated the National School Lunch Program this past school year and you go to fill out that form, we are aware of the issue not allowing you to indicate that you don't plan to operate, and I'm actively working to update that. So if it doesn't give you the option that you think it should, please circle back sometime this afternoon and it should be fixed for you. So for those who are planning to operate Seamless Summer, the Seamless Summer option as a summer program, you will have SSO site applications in MyldahoCNP. Those are going to be the same ones that you updated for your school year. However, as I mentioned earlier, you can't operate as a closed enrolled summer school site, and so you'll need to go into those SSO site applications and indicate that you will be open if you haven't already been operating that way. And in conjunction with that, you will need to notify your community that it is an open community feeding site that you will be operating this summer. And those are some reminders that we have here. So summer school sites need to be open to children in the community, and these waiver flexibilities that you're operating under for this Seamless Summer 2021, they don't apply in school year 21-22. In terms of public notification, You are expected to reach out to your community and inform them that you're operating a summer program. However, it doesn't need to be a formal press release or a media notification. That is indicated in your SSO site application, and you will just check a box saying we did flyers to families, we sent out an email, we updated our website, whatever notification pathway you have, you'll indicate that in your SSO site applications. Health inspections are something that are to be encouraged. However, if you were able to receive 2 health inspections during the school year, you're not required to pay for additional health inspections during the summer. And that is something that just be aware of. If you didn't get 2, it's an opportunity for you to go and request an additional oversight from the health department. On-site monitoring is a requirement during Seamless Summer. It's a little different than the requirements that we have during the school year for standard National School Lunch Program. And we actually did release a training specific to SSO on-site monitoring, which is available in the CNP training portal. For summer operations, you need to make it out to every site at least once. And so whatever site you're operating as Seamless Summer, you need to go and review them for meal counting, claiming, all the standard areas of review. And so the training that's highlighted here is the one training that we consolidated during the school year. We had 3 Seamless Summer option trainings specific to the school year, and so we have updated that to be specific to summer operators, and we consolidated it. So keep in mind, this is one training that came out of 3, so it's more lengthy than you would typically find in our CNP training portal. You will receive 2 hours of continuing education, and this is something that we are requiring those who are planning to operate Seamless Summer to upload your certificate of completion into MyldahoCNP. And so as you are updating your SSO site applications in MyldahoCNP, saving those, submitting them, be sure to take this Seamless Summer option training, save your certificate of completion, and upload that document into the attachment list. And those are the big pieces to indicate that you will be operating Seamless Summer. In reference to the application packet in MyldahoCNP, we sent out instructions to those of you who have already indicated you'll be operating Seamless Summer. So if you're listening to this and you're saying, I didn't get an email yesterday, go ahead and email me, hbloom@sde.idaho.gov, and let me know, because we didn't want to send out instructions for everybody, recognizing that we're in this period where folks are looking for renewal instructions for school year 21-22. So for those of you who are operating Seamless Summer option, if you didn't receive an email yesterday from me with instructions, let me know, because what that does is it walks you through the process of updating your SSO site applications in MyldahoCNP, and it also instructs you where you need to pay attention to, indicating that it's a closed site, no longer, it's going from closed to open, I'm sorry. And then the timeline that's highlighted here, if you've been operating an open site all year, it's more a matter of extending the date and adding the additional operational days. If you've been operating a closed-in site, a closed enrolled site, and you're transitioning to an open site, just be aware that you are updating an active and live SSO site app, and we want to be more sensitive to the fact that if you're still currently operating closed enrolled, we don't want to supersede that with telling us what you're going to do in the summer, but we are in that last month before summer operation, so it's a little bit of a balancing act since we don't have new applications for this. So hopefully that didn't confuse matters, but I'll hand it over to TJ to talk about next year's waivers, and thanks all.
Thank you so much, Heather. Appreciate the introduction. And just so that we're really clear, now what we're going to cover is next year's operations, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware everything we've discussed previously is covering your immediate steps if you're planning to operate for summer 2021. So if you need to review that information again, I'm sure that there are some handouts available regarding this information. So we're happy to report that USDA has actually proactively issued waiver flexibilities for school year 21-22. Most of the waivers mirror operational flexibilities of last year, but there are a few distinct differences in these waivers, so we want to make sure that we cover them. And again, as a reminder, the waivers that we're going to review apply to school year 21-22, beginning to end of year operations. So these are not applicable to any type of summer operations. As a reminder, we do have handouts attached to this webinar, and this particular graphic that was created by Jessica, which we so appreciate, is attached as a handout, so you'll be able to review it more carefully after we go over this quickly. So essentially, a couple of things to cover first before we talk about the individual waivers. For accountability purposes, our sponsors and organizations will need to opt in to these waivers as you did in previous operations under flexibilities. However, currently we don't want to go through that process. We just want to make you aware that there will be an opt-in requirement, and more to come on that in the coming weeks and months. So let's quickly talk about some of these flexibilities. The opportunity to operate seamless summer option was extended by USDA, and you can see that this particular handout identifies who these operations are applicable to. So for instance, number 85, waiver 85, is applicable to anyone that wants to operate a seamless summer option program. The really good news for waiver 86, this is kind of a big deal, is that USDA recognized that there were financial impacts to operating in a different scenario, particularly where we're not operating with free, reduced, and paid in our old formats. So USDA is allowing SSO operators to receive the Summer Food Service Program reimbursement rate. So that is a really, really big deal. There is something important to note, however. There is a maximum of 2 meals that may be served at this rate. So if you're serving breakfast and lunch, which would be the case, or for some schools, lunch and snack, those are reimbursable at that SFSP rate. However, lunch and supper may not be claimed together, so please keep that in mind. The next waiver to discuss is allowing the non-congregate meal service. So we recognize that everyone's in a little bit different scenario still, and being able to serve those students in a non-congregate setting will be allowed for school year 21-22. Additionally, the waiver for meal service times is also extended or issued as a new waiver for school year 21-22. It is important to note under the flexibility number 88 that there are some contingencies with these particular waivers. So it is contingent on the inability to feed children safely in a congregate setting. So keep that in mind for waiver number 88. It is contingent upon your inability to serve children safely in a congregate setting. And then 89 and 90 both allow for parent pickup and meal pattern flexibility. These two are also fall under that same contingency. So the idea is that these flexibilities exist so that we can feed children in a non-congregate setting safely. However, there will need to be some measure of accountability for allowing parents and guardians to pick up. In other words, if you need it. So the number 90 mirrors the meal pattern flexibility that was available last school year, and the state agency has determined that we will put out a process similar to what we did last year. So if you need meal pattern flexibility for some various reason, let's say a supply chain constraint or packaging constraints or something along those lines, we will be asking sponsors to submit and opt in a request basically for that very specific need for meal pattern flexibility. The next couple of waivers allow for CACFP meal pattern flexibility. So if you operate the CACFP program, know that that process will likely continue as the state agency requested last time with a specific request opt-in form. The allowability to offer or to opt out of offer versus serve in high school for next school year has also been extended, so keep that in mind. And then we have the area eligibility in after-school programs. So this is important to note that for any sponsors that want to operate an after-school snack program, you can do so, and it waives the area eligibility, and those reimbursement rates will be at the free rate regardless of area eligibility for school year 21-22. So that after-school snack can be operated under the National School Lunch Program. And then we have monitoring requirements are waived again for school year 21-22, allowing for off-site monitoring. This one is unique in that it does have a caveat. The waiver remains in effect until 30 days after the end of the public health emergency. So essentially, you can see that what USDA is trying to do is prepare schools for reintegration to operations. However, you can continue to serve under SSO for the school year and receive that SFSP reimbursement rate. So those are two really great flexibilities. And then, of course, that same monitoring waiver exists for the child and adult care food program. So we didn't want to overburden you too much with thinking ahead for school year 21-22, but felt as a state agency it was really important for us to just give you a high overview of these particular waivers that were released. And please watch for updates, broadcast emails as to the defined processes for how you will participate under these waivers for school year 21-22. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time back over to Colleen to finish up our webinar. Thank you all so much for participating today.
Hey, thank you, TJ, and everyone. That's a lot of information, important information, so appreciate you sharing. So we're going to go through the questions. It looks like almost all of them have been answered already, but I still will assign them to the specific individuals so they can just provide additional clarification. So first question is, do you have suggestions for the integrity piece when parents can take meals off-site? Can we collect names of parents? This typically is not allowed in summer, collecting children's names. So Heather, you want to take that one? Heather, you might be on mute. Okay, so I'm assuming
I can take it, Colleen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, thank you. So USDA defined several options in the reporting survey discussed at the beginning of the webinar, and those options included scanned children's meal cards or asked children's personal identification numbers used for the meal service. Some sponsors requested the children's names, ages or dates of birth, this is from the parents, or grade levels when the meals were picked up. Some requested children's school names or a copy of the school correspondence when meals were picked up. They requested the number of children for which the parent guardian was picking up meals. They provided parents and guardians with rear view mirror hangers, placards, or QR codes that posted signage to indicate who is eligible to pick up and receive meals. Other methods to ensure meals distributed only to parent guardians of eligible children. So these are some of the ways that sponsors in Idaho protected the program integrity for parent pickup. So this is something that there's a lot of options. Deciding which is best for your district depends probably on how the site is operating, and you can reach out to the state agency with more specific questions or ideas that you want to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. Those are some great suggestions. I really like those. Okay, so next question. When do we update SSO packets for this next year or NSLP? Looks like Jen put the answer in that it's going to open up June 7th. So Jen, I didn't know, you probably don't need to add any more than that since you gave the date. Okay, next question. If we do not plan to run Seamless Summer for the summer, and I have already filled out the survey stating that I will not be doing so, do I need to do anything else at this time? Do I need to do the Seamless 2021 training online if I might be asking to run a closed enrolled Seamless in the 21-22 school year? So Jen, you want to take that one?
Yes, so we're planning to release a mandatory training for all SFAs for next school year's operations. We will be sending emails out, notification that when this training is available. It currently is not. We are trying to just focus our attention on making sure that we have all the summer plans set up and adequate training for summer operations only at this point. Once we do release next school year's training, I will remind you, we will always include a catalog of other trainings. At any time you do want specific information, there'll be other trainings available to look at, and that will include an SSO training. So we will ensure that something is available next school year for SSO operations.
So I think you answered that already, but the next question was the new Seamless training in the portal for the summer program or next fall? And I believe you just answered that, right, Jen?
Correct. The one that we did have a summer or SSO trainings that we had released that were for the 2021 operations. We've just replaced that with a training that will be required if you plan to operate SSO Summer operations. And that is available in the portal right now for you to go in and register only if you are planning to serve meals this summer. At a later date, we will release something for next school year.
Okay, sounds great. Next question. I am up to apply for an extension for Provision 2. It says due May 15th, but if the packet is not open till June, how do I need to go about this? So Jen, you want to go ahead and take that one?
Yeah. So if you are a district that is having a Provision 2 expire this school year, please, and you plan to request an extension, please upload your extension request in this 2021 packet. I would also appreciate if you wouldn't mind just sending me a quick email saying that it is available. I have been going in and looking at those so that I can let you know right away whether or not you qualify to be extended on Provision 2 or not. I will also, just to let you know, that if you plan to operate SSO next school year and are currently in a Provision 2 cycle, we will just stay your cycle. The cycle will continue, but we'll just have you only serve SSO meals, not a provision meal. So the dates will continue. So if I can extend you for another 4 years, you wouldn't necessarily operate SSO next year if that's what, or you wouldn't operate Provision 2 if you elected to do SSO, but that would give you 3 subsequent school years that you can revert back to your Provision 2.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Will the sites that would have been reviewed under NSLP and were reviewed in 2021 still be reviewed in 2022 school year? So,
Colleen, I can take that one.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Heather.
Yeah, sorry everyone for the delay in my response earlier. I lost my unmute button. It was hiding under my questions panel. So the review schedule for any future reviews is yet to be determined. USDA is working on what type of review aspects need to be covered, and our Idaho review schedule is yet to be determined.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. I am up to apply for an, oh wait, I think we did that one already on the extension for the provision 2. So let me skip over that one. Well, it looks like I have some duplicates here. Okay, do we have reimbursement rates yet for summer food? Heather, you want to take that one?
Sure, we are still waiting for USDA to establish that rate.
Okay. Is there an expected date for renewal for the Seamless program for next fall? TJ, you want to take that one?
Sure. Jen already offered that date, but just to reiterate, renewal for school year 21-22 will open June 7th, 2021. And there will be more information on that process to come.
Perfect, thank you. Next question, what is the deadline to submit a summer food packet renewal? So Dominique, you want to take that one?
Yes. Oh, actually, it says the above question was answered. So just clarifying, April 30th was the deadline for the state agency. If you have not submitted it, please work on submitting it because the federal deadline is June 15th. And if the packets are not approved at that point, you will not be able to operate. So the sooner the better. Thank you.
Thanks, Dominique. Okay, next question. When serving meals in the National School Lunch program for offer versus serve for the 6th through the 12th, is it possible to pre-pack items that make up the reimbursable meal, including a half-cup veggie, half-cup fruit, and offer versus serve the milk and additional vegetable and fruit required in a meal pattern? So who would like to take that one?
This is a pretty detailed question, and so I'd be happy to work with this person individually depending on the age grade group, 6th through 12th age grade group. It's an intriguing concept. If you'd reach out to me individually and we can have a conversation about it, I'd feel more comfortable with additional detail on answering that.
Okay, great. So go ahead and give Heather a call. Will we be free reduced lunch applications and verification this next year? So who would like to take that one?
Hey, Colleen, this is Linda. I can take that one. So it depends if you apply for SSO next school year. You don't have to take free and reduced applications. However, if you happen to take free and reduced applications for any reason, verification is required. And even if you don't take it, I'm assuming that verification, maybe in a smaller amount, will be required from USDA, but they have not given us further guidance on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, next question. Where do I go to opt in to the new waivers for summer food? I received the email that had all of the waivers, but there was not a link attached. So, Dominique?
Thank you, Colleen. Great question. We have provided the links to those waivers in the handouts that are on this webinar today. So you can click on the nationwide waiver flyer handout that takes you to the links to opt into the waiver for summer. Thank you.
Okay, and the next comment was someone's having a hard time uploading their summer food packet. So Dominique just put in that she will contact you and will help you out there. Okay, next question. 21-22 in National School Lunch, will we be required to ring up students based on their eligibility, or will we be able to tally mark students receiving meals? So I think that depends on what program they run, but who would like to take that one?
I can take that one.
Okay.
If you're going to be running under the National School Lunch Program, then you will need to charge students based on their eligibility. If you're running under the Seamless Summer option during school year 21-22, all students will be free. So you could do a tally mark. That could be your method of meal counting. But this question specifically asks about NSLP, so you will have to make sure that you charge based on student eligibility for NSLP.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. So next question has to do with cash in lieu, which is very few districts in our state have cash in lieu, but wanting to know how cash in lieu will work in 21-22. And TJ has just mentioned that we have not received the information on that yet. Was there anything else you wanted to add, TJ?
No, that's great, Colleen. We do know that USDA is proactively working on certain waivers, but entitlement is one of those issues where it seems to kind of wait until there's enough pressure from the state agencies to make some decisions. Although I will say that there have been conversations about how will all of this, be resolved, particularly with the new waivers. So I'm sure more will follow, and those that are cash in lieu will receive information accordingly.
Perfect. Thank you, TJ. Okay, next question. How can you verify if you do not have free and reduced applications? So Linda, you want to take that one?
Sure. Okay, so you might have missed it before. As I stated, if you receive an application, then you have to continue with verification. If you don't get any applications, you don't have to verify anything. However, you may have to complete a smaller, lesser verification report, but we're waiting for USDA to give us further guidance on it. But what I said before is if you receive an application, you have to approve it and go through everything, even if you're running the summer food SSO program.
Yeah, and just to add to what, oh, go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that if PEBT extends into this next year, and that is an if, we don't know if that will occur, it will be in the benefit of those students if they do submit a free and reduced application. But again, that will depend upon what happens. And I cut you off, Linda, so
no,
please continue.
That was fine. I was just going to go on to the next one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go to the next question.
Okay, so the next one says, on NSLP, are students receiving free meals? Okay, we need to get terminology correct. On NSLP, students you have to do applications, free, reduced, and paid. But under NSLP, the waiver allows you to do SSO, where all children are receiving free meals. So you have to know your wording. So SSO is free meals, NSLP not necessarily. Does that answer it, you think?
I would also
so.
just add, I would encourage folks to look at one of the handouts included in this webinar, the school year 21-22 nationwide waivers flyer. I think there might be some confusion in terms of NSLP and SSO. So there are 3 columns on that flyer, and it tells you if you decide to run SSO, what flyers and flexibilities are applicable. And it does the same. Maybe you don't want to operate under SSO and you just want to run National School Lunch, School Breakfast Program, look at that flyer and see what waivers and flexibilities are applicable. Because if you want to serve all of your students free meals, then you may want to consider operating under SSO. If you just want to serve under National School Lunch, School Breakfast, then you need to count and claim based on each individual student's eligibility.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Okay, can we announce that we are not accepting applications this year due to already serving free meals? So TJ, you want to take that?
Yeah, I wanted to address this one specifically because I think Jessica just hit on a really important part of these flexibilities. One of the things to keep in mind is if you plan to run NSLP, you will have to have applications, free, reduced, and paid. You'll have to notify people of their, or families of their eligibility, and you'll be claiming accordingly. The reason that USDA was proactive in releasing these nationwide waivers is so that sponsors wouldn't be in a situation where they have to collect free and reduced applications, but it can be beneficial to receive those. So to suggest that you would notify families that we don't need a free and reduced application if you're planning to operate SSO seems counterproductive, and SSO operations allow for the higher rate of reimbursement. So you really need to look at the, like Jessica implied, look at the handout that's attached and identify the benefits of operating SSO versus NSLP and what that would mean in terms of, you know, operations in your specific school district.
Okay, thank you, TJ. I agree with that. You know, you can't really refuse an application. So, okay, next question. Do we actively ask for free and reduced applications from patrons? And who would like to take that one?
Hi, Colleen, this is TJ. I'll go ahead and just reiterate that free and reduced applications it's a concept that we all know we will return to at some point. So while you don't want to refuse and just tell people don't submit any applications, best practice would imply that if you let folks know that they can submit a free and reduced application, there are some benefits to each and every school district. But one thing to really be aware of, because I know the next question also asks, it affects title funding. Please keep in mind that free and reduced applications for USDA food or for child nutrition programs are for the benefit of child nutrition programs. Other funding sources also are working to ensure that data is available for other programs. Title I is not a child nutrition program. So that's really important distinction.
Okay, good input, TJ. And I think that Linda has additional information on the question about the title funding. So Linda, did you have more you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say USDA and the U.S. Department of Education has provided guidance on the title funding. And I will reiterate what TJ said. Applications should only be collected from families for the benefit of USDA meal programs, not for title programs. They have given guidance on alternate ways to determine that.
Okay, great. So if you have never ran Seamless, we were able to, under the waiver, this will allow free and reduced meals. I'm not sure I'm getting this question, but Jessica, it looks like you did, so I'll let you go ahead and answer it.
Thanks, Colleen. Yes, so I know that we have quite a few sponsors who chose to run under SFSP this past school year. That is not going to be an option next year. So to answer your question, yes, you can operate under SSO even if you have never operated under the program previously. If you operate SSO, that means free meals for all of your students. If you operate NSLP school breakfast, charge students based on individual eligibility. So that means you're going to do free, reduced, or paid.
Can I add something that I'm not sure everybody is aware of? We did have some questions on this and we answered it. And it was part of the presentation that TJ went over. But for those of you that are considering operating that will be reimbursed at the summer food service rate. So it is a higher reimbursement rate in addition to providing all meals for free, while NSLP is still an option and collecting free and reduced and paid applications would be a part of that. That will be paid under the standard NSLP rate. So I just wanted to call attention, that's an additional difference between those two operating styles.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Okay, next question. What will the USDA foods look like in the year 2022-23 if we operate seamless? So TJ, you want to take that one?
Sure, thank you. And just to make it really, really clear, USDA foods entitlement values are determined on lunch meal counts from the previous school year. So if we operate SSO for school year 21-22, your entitlement will be based on those same lunch meal counts, because SSO is a summer operation program under MSLP. So there is no loss of entitlement running SSO. It's only when you operate this SFSP that there is no entitlement value. So that's a good question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, TJ. Next one. Do we know if funding for Seamless for school year 21-22 will last the entire year? So Heather, you want to take that one?
Sure. The waivers that came out addressing school year 21-22 did not actually discuss funding and its contingent availability. It said that these waiver flexibilities are available until June 30th of 2022. We asked USDA for confirmation that would there be any need to transition back to NSLP and standard operations during the school year, and the answer was no. So for those of you considering operating Seamless Summer, that is something that you would elect and then operate all year long without the need to switch back to National School Lunch Program.
Okay, it looks like the last question is, what is the difference in meal pattern between Seamless, National School Lunch, and summer food? I have never operated Seamless, but I have National School Lunch and summer food. So Heather?
Sure. The Seamless Summer option is an extension of the National School Lunch Program. So it follows the National School Lunch Program lunch meal pattern and the school breakfast meal pattern. You do have the option of providing a snack under that, but you are limited to only operating 2 meal services under the Seamless Summer. So typically we would see that as being a breakfast and a lunch, which follow the NSLP meal pattern. The Summer Food Service Program has a distinct meal pattern and is different. So those are the differences.
Perfect. Okay, that is the end of all of our questions. Those were some excellent questions and a lot of really good information that the team shared. So want to thank everyone for the information and the questions. So again, first slide showed some potential future webinars that we might have. I'm going to toss just for a second if there's anyone else on the state agency team, anything that you want to share that you feel that we did not cover. Okay, so the silence means they feel they covered everything, and I know they did a lot of planning for this, so I'm not a bit surprised. So thank you, everyone, for your continued work. Hard to believe we're almost in the summertime, and here we go with lots of different waivers again. So thank you again for all of the hard work, and we will see you hopefully in the near future. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, all.